Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavala Bhagirvardhari. Gopi Janavala Bhagirvardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavala Bhagirvardhari. Gopi Janavala Bhagirvardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajanaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahaṁsa Parivrajatacharya Astutar Sutta Sri Srimad. His Divine Grace Srila Bhai Charnarvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahaṁsa Parivrajatacharya Astutar Sutta Sri Srimad. His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srila Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai. Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radhagiri Dari Ji Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Shri Guru, Shri Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Aha. Gupta Tanbura, the secret Tanbura. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 3, chapters entitled Yamaraja Instructs His Messengers, text number 28. Tad anayadvam asato makuna vimukhan mukunda. Tan anayadvam asato vimukhan vimukunda. Padharavinda makaranda rasada jasram.
Padharavinda makaranda rasada jasram.
Padharavinda makaranda rasada jasram.
Padharavinda makaranda rasada jasram.
Nishkinchanai Paramahaṁsas kuler asangher.
Nishkinchanai Paramahaṁsas kuler asangher.
Nishkinchanai Paramahaṁsas kuler asangher.
Nishkinchanai Paramahaṁsas kuler asangher.
Dushtad grihe niravit vartmani bhada trishnan. Dushtad grihe nirayavartmani bhada trishnan. Tan anayadvam asato vimukhan mukunda. Padharavinda makaranda rasad ajasram. Nishkinchanai Paramahaṁsas kuler asangher. Jushtad grihe niravartmani bhada trishnan. Tan anayadvam asato vimukhan mukunda. Padaravinda makaranda rasada jasram. Nishkinchanai Paramahaṁsa kuler asangher. Jushtad grihe niravartmani bhada trishnan. Please chant. Padaravinda makaranda rasada jasram. Niskinchanai Paramahaṁsa kulera sangher. Jushtad grihe niravartmani bhada trishnan. Tan anayadvam asato vimukhan mukunda. Padaravinda makaranda rasada jasram. Niskinchanai Paramahaṁsa kulera sangher. Justad grihe niravartmani bhada trishnan. Tan anayadvam asato vimukhan mukunda. Padaravinda makaranda rasada jasram. Nishkinchanai Paramahaṁsa kulera asangher. Jushtad grihe niravartmani bhada trishnan. Tan anayadvam asato vimukhan mukunda. Padaravinda makaranda rasada jasram. Niskinchanai Paramahaṁsa kulera sangher. Jushtad grihe niravartmani bhada trishnan. Tan anayadvam asato vimukhan mukunda. Padaravinda makaranda rasada jasram. Nishkinchanai Paramahaṁsa kulera sangher. Jushtad grihe niravartmani bhada trishnan. Tan them anayadvam bring before me asataha non-devotees, those who have not taken to Krishna consciousness, vimukhan, who have turned against Mukunda, of Mukunda, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pada Aravinda, of the lotus feet. Makaranda, of the honey. Rasat, the taste. Ajasram, continuously. Nishkinchanai, by persons completely free from material attachment. Paramahaṁsa kulai, by the Paramahaṁsas, the most exalted personalities. Asangai, who have no material attachment. Jushtat, which is enjoyed, grihe, to household life, niraya vartmani, the path leading to hell, bhara trishnan, whose desires are bound. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Abhay Charanarvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: Paramahaṁsas are exalted persons who have no taste for material enjoyment and who drink the honey of the Lord's lotus feet. My dear servants, bring to me for punishment only persons who are averse to the taste of that honey, who do not associate with Paramahaṁsas, and who are attached to family life and worldly enjoyment, which form the path to hell. Purport. After warning the Yamadutas not to approach the devotees, Yamaraja now indicates who is to be brought before him. He specifically advises the Yamadutas to bring him the materialistic persons who are attached to household life merely for sex. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Yan maitunadi grihamedi sukham itucham. Srimad Bhagavatam 7:9-45. People are attached to household life for sex only. They are always harassed in many ways by their material engagements, and their only happiness is that after working very hard all day, at night they sleep and indulge in sex. Nidraya riyate naktam vyavayena chava vayaha. Srimad Bhagavatam 2.1.3. At night, materialistic householders sleep or indulge in sex life. Diva charte haya rajan kutumba baranena va. During the day, they are busy trying to find out where money is, and if they get money, they spend it to maintain their families. Yamaraja specifically advises his servants to bring these persons to him for punishment and not to bring the devotees who always lick the honey at the lotus feet of the Lord, who are equal to everyone, and who try to preach Krishna consciousness because of sympathy for all living entities. Devotees are not liable to punishment by Yamaraja, but persons who have no information of Krishna consciousness cannot be protected by their material life of so-called family enjoyment. Srimad Bhagavatam says 2.1.4 Deha patya kala tradishvu atma sanyeshva satsvapi Tesham pramato nidhanam pashyan api na pashyati. Such persons complacently believe that their nations, communities, or families can protect them, unaware that all such fallible soldiers will be destroyed in due course of time. In conclusion, one should try to associate with persons who engage in devotional service 24 hours a day. Tan an yadvam asatovim mukhan mukunda padara vinda makaranda rasad ajasram nishkinchanai Paramahaṁsa kuler asanger jushtad grihe niraya vartmani bhada trishnan. Om jnanatirmandasya gyananjana shalakaya Chakshur unmilitam jena tasmai Shri Guruve namaha. Shri Caitanya manobishtam stapitam yena bhutale svayam rupa kadamayam dadati svapadantikam. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane. Vancha kalpatrubhyascha kripa sindubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Gurumukam karoti vachalam Pangam langayate girim Yat kripa tamaham vande Shri Gurun dinataranam Paramananda madhavam Shri Caitanya Ishvaram. Hare Krishna. So it's my great fortune to be here today. May Bahod Bhagyavan. Bhagyavan Jeev means a fortunate soul. I feel like I'm a fortunate soul being here in the association of so many wonderful dedicated Vaishnavas. Thank you for coming and giving your association. And I seek all of your blessings that I can speak for my own purification, especially my longtime mentors and friends, His Grace Dravida Prabhu. Thank you so much, His Grace Vijay Prabhu. And thank you for coming. Hare Krishna. So, we're reading from the 6th canto, 3rd chapter. Chapters entitled Yamaraja Instructs His Messengers. Text number 28. And before this section of Ajamil, we had a section in Bhagavatam about the hellish planets. And quite gruesome description, very horrific. And none of us want to end up there. And we don't want other people to end up there also. That's one of the reasons we do what we do. And Yamaraja has a planet where he tries these sinful living entities like a magistrate. I was listening to a lecture early this morning. Srila Prabhupada was describing how in so many countries around the world there are court systems and there are magistrates. So why there should not be a big magistrate like Yamaraja in his own planet overseeing the sentencing of the sinful living entities? It's quite logical. So Yamaraja is reviewing the case of Ajamil because and Ajamil is excused for his foremost sinful acts. He committed so many sins, but he's getting excused. Why? Because he chanted the holy name of the Lord, Narayan. So in today's verse, Yamaraja is discussing who is to be brought before Yamaraja. He's very clear who's not to be brought. And now he's starting to explain who should be brought to him. And who are those people? They're the sinful people, the papi lok. Papi lok. The those people that are averse to God, they're against God, they're atheists, they're envious of God, they're against Him. They don't associate with devotees. And they're very attached. What are they attached to? Number one, materialistic family life without connection to Krishna consciousness. And they're attached to worldly enjoyment, especially sex life. So the Krishna consciousness movement is meant to save people from these sins and all this suffering that we're going to get happening here, and help them cultivate love for Krishna. This is a movement of transformation where sinful persons can be transformed into saintly persons by the distribution of transcendental knowledge and the application of that knowledge. Apana samsmritim goram yanama vivisho grinan tatat sadyo vimucheta yad bibeti svayam bhayam. That living entities are caught up in this complicated mesh or net of repetition of birth and death. Goram, it's very, very difficult to overcome. But this Nam, the holy name of the Lord, can very quickly, Vivisho Grinan, if they accept Grinan, then Vivisho very quickly, Sadyo Vimucheta. Vivisho means even without any intention or unconsciously. Even if someone chants unconsciously, then sadyo vimucheta. Sadyo means immediately, and vimucheta means they become free from their sinful activities. Yad bibeti svayam bayam. That the holy name is feared by fear personified. So by chanting the holy name, we can overcome our sinful reactions, we can overcome our destination hellish planets and our fierce sentencing by Yamaraja. And then giving our life to Krishna, we can become peaceful and happy. And in this way, our lives can become successful. So in this section, Parikshit Maharaj is inquiring from Sukadeva Goswami. And he's asking, what was Yamaraja's reply to the Yamadutas as to why Yamaraja's order had been foiled? The Yamadutas went to capture Ajamil. They had their ropes and their knots, and all of a sudden these four beautiful four-handed forms appeared, and they, with their weapons, they forcibly cut the knots that were binding Ajamil. And the Yamadutas, they never saw anything like this. What is happening? How is our master's order being foiled? And we, as far as we know, Yamaraja is the topmost controller in the universe. No one can overrun Yamaraja. So they were totally bewildered. So they went to see Yamaraja. And Yamaraja explained that actually I'm not the supreme. That actually there's a supreme personality of Godhead. And we should worship that personality. And he chanted this beautiful verse for the Yamadutas. Etavan eva lokesmin pumsam dharma parasmrtaha Bhakti yogo bhagavati tannama grahanadibihi. It's a beautiful verse. It says, devotional service beginning with the chanting of the holy names is the ultimate religious principle for the living entity in human society. So even Yamaraj is encouraging his chelas, his assistants, that they should engage in this Harinam Sankirtan. He's a Mahajan, and he's promoting the holy name. Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam, kalo nasteva, nasteva, nasteva gatiranyata. And this is our main process in this age of Kali, to engage in the congregational chanting of the holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So as we enter through this chapter, Yamaraja explains who is not interested in chanting. So who's not interested in chanting, and why are they not interested? Number one, they're bewildered by the material energy. They're bewildered by Maya. Devi Esha Gunamayi Mama Maya Dharataya Mam Eva Ye Prapadyante Mayam Etan Tarantite. Bhagavad Gita explains that this Maya is very, very difficult to overcome. And most people, practically everyone, Maya is catching. And she bewilders them. And how does she bewilder them? One way is she causes their minds to be attracted to the ritualistic ceremonies offered in the Vedas. These different ceremonies, these different rituals. And by performing these rituals, one can go to Svarga Lok and the heavenly planets and get so many material enjoyments. So these are very attractive, and one can be distracted from devotional service very easily by this enticement, the snare of the attraction of material enjoyments. But the thing about material enjoyments is they're here today and they're gone tomorrow. We can't take them with us at the time of death. Antavatu phalam tesham tadbhavati alpamedasam. One who's going after temporary material enjoyments, his medasam, his intelligence, is considered swalpa or alpa, or very small. Because whatever wealth we get, whatever beauty or material education, or whatever material fame we may gather around us, all these different things, material things, are lost at the time of death. There was one lady, she had her husband, and her husband told her, at the time of death, when I die, and they put my body in the casket, ready to bury me, I want you to go to the bank, take out all my money, put it in an envelope, and bury it with me in the casket. So that sounds like a good idea, right? No. I think the Egyptians, they used to do something like that in the pyramids. So it's not a far out concept. People have this idea. It's still done. Yeah. It's dumb. Yeah. It is dumb. It's a silly idea. And here's why. So the lady went to the funeral when her husband left. She was with all her friends. They were all wailing and crying, and they were just about to close the casket. And she ran forward with a big envelope and put it in the casket. And the casket shut, and they put it in the ground, and they started throwing the dirt on the top and burying the casket. And after it was all buried and the funeral was over, her friends said, "Oh, what did you do? What did you do? How you could do this?" She said, "I went to the bank, I got a check, I put it in the casket. If he can cash it, he can spend it." So she followed her husband's instructions, but yet she was not so dumb, right? So none of us should be dumb that we think we can carry these material things with us to the next life. But people are overcome by Maya, people are overcome by illusion. And they get attracted to the flowery language of the Vedas, of the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas. You do this yajna and you can go to Svarga Lok and you can enjoy with all the beautiful Svargavasis like that. So their minds are just attracted to the temporary benefits, and they get attracted to dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. This materialistic duties, getting some artha, some economic development, kama, some sense gratification, and moksha, some temporary liberation. So they don't approach the devotees. But on the other hand, the devotees, they're chanting the holy name, and even if they commit some sin, even if the devotees make some sin, through a mistake, through bewilderment, through illusion, these are 3 different reasons Prabhupada gives for devotees making mistakes. Mistake, sin. This is 3 reasons for sin. Mistake, bewilderment, and illusion. But they're always protected from sin. Why? How? Because they're always chanting, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. They're fully surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They're equal to everyone. Vidyavanaya Sampane, Brahmani Gavi Hastani, Shuni Chaiva Supakecha, Panditaha Samadarshanaha. They see everyone equally. They see the Atma, they see the soul. They see a dog eater, a cow, an elephant, a brahmana. They see everyone equally. And their narrations are sung by the demigods, and they're always protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by His weapon. Which weapon protects the devotees? We discussed this yesterday. The club, the gada. Don't mess with the devotees. Lord Vishnu's club is there. And then Yamaraja says, Brahma, I, and even the time factor are not competent to chastise the devotees. So it's amazing, not even the time factor can chastise the devotees. Looks like we're all getting old. Looks like we're getting chastised. But in a sense, he reasons ill that Vaishnavas die while thou art living still and sound. The Vaishnavas die to live, and living spread the holy name around. The Vaishnavas are always enthusiastic to engage in every kind of service. And they see everything as Krishna's mercy, even getting old. Tate nukampam susamikshamano bunjana evatma kritam vipakam vidvag vipurbir vidadanimaste jiveti yo mukti pade sadhayapak. Srimad Bhagavatam explains, Lord Brahma in the 10th canto, that I've done so many terrible things in this lifetime, so many terrible things in my previous lifetimes. Whatever suffering I'm going through, I deserve much worse. But the Lord is only giving me a small percentage, a token of suffering that I actually deserve. And that is for my benefit, for my purification. A person who can pray like this with a grateful heart, the kingdom of God becomes his rightful claim. So, devotees are enthusiastic even for suffering, because that is the mercy of the Lord. That is the mercy of the Lord. This brings us to today's verse. Today's verse is Yamaraja Uvacha. He's continuing his discussion. Yamaraja is speaking, and he says, Tan anayadvam asato vimukan mikunda. He says, bring before me those non-devotees who have turned away from Mukunda. So, anayadvam means bring them to me. Bring me those. And who you should bring? Those that do vimukan. Mukan means face, muk, like bahir muk. So someone who's vimukan, who's turning their face away from Krishna, from Mukunda, bring me that person. That's what Yamaraja is saying. Then he says, Padaravinda makaranda rasada jasram. He says, don't bring the devotees. And who are the devotees? Padaravinda makaranda rasad. They're always tasting the honey of the lotus feet of the Lord. So they're always connected with the Lord in some way through devotional service. Maybe licking that Mahaprasadam honey that just came off the altar, or by hearing the nectarian narrations from Srimad Bhagavatam and other scriptures, or by tasting the honey of the Lord's lotus feet in the form of chanting His holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Yamaraja further describes in the third line of this verse the qualities of those devotees. They are Niskaninchai Paramahaṁsas kuler asanger. They're niskinchana. They're completely free from material attachment. They're only attached to the spiritual things in life. And then in the fourth line of today's verse, Yamaraja talks again about those sinful personalities, the non-devotees, who should be brought. And what are their qualities? Justad grihe niraya vartmani bada trishnam. Bada means bound. Trishnam means their desires. They're bound by their material desires. And what are those desires? Materialistic family life. They're just caught up in their materialistic family life. And on the road, niraya vartmani. Vartmani means path, and niraya means hell. They're on the path to hell. Niraya Vartmani. We have a McDonald's across the street, not meaning to give a plug on the Vyasa-san, but there should be a sign that says, Niraya Vartmani. You know, come this way. If you're going there, that's Niraya Vartmani. That's the path to hell. We have to install it. Yes. So maybe we can put a blimp, you know, and then like a big sign floating in the air with a sign pointing down, because that's the way to hell also, in one figuratively speaking. Paramahaṁsas are exalted persons who have no taste for material enjoyment and who drink the honey of the Lord's lotus feet. My dear servants, bring to me for punishment only persons who are averse to the taste of that honey, who do not associate with Paramahaṁsas, and who are attached to family life and worldly enjoyment, which form the path to hell. So there's a very nice verse in Rishabhadev's teachings, 5th canto, 5th chapter, text 8. This is very applicable in today's discussion. Pumsam striho maituni bhavametan tayor mito hridaya grantim ahu ato griha kshetra sutapta viter janasya mohoyam aham mameti. So Rishabhdev, he says, the attraction between male and female is the basic principle of material existence. Pumsam striya maituni bhavam etam. The pumsam, the male, and the striyam, the female, they come together and they experience maituni bhavam. Bhavam means mood. Like we want to chant with bhav and emotion. But there's positive bhavs and there's negative bhavs. And this maituni bhavam is a negative bhav. The maituni bhavam is often described as the sexual attraction. Maituni grihamedi sukham hi tucham. Prabhupada also mentions in the purport today that it's despicable. It should be looked down upon. This kind of happiness stemming from sex life. Now, Maituni Bhavam does not only refer to gross sex life, but also subtle sex life. If we see the signs of the zodiac, of the astrological Gemini, they're called Maituni, the twins. The twins are called Maitun. So when the male and the female come together and they form a very tight bond, Hridaya Grantimahu, Hriday heart, Grantim means knot. A hard knot appears in the heart. So the twins, there's this mood of like being a team. You know, the husband and the wife, they like to do things together and go places together and do everything together. And this is also called Maituni Bhavam. It's not gross sex life. It's just a very strong relationship, a very strong bond. Or as we hear in the next slide, Hridaya Grantim Ahu. It's a hard knot that's very, very difficult to cut. So ultimately, at the end of life, we want to remember Krishna. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavan jazante ante kalevaram tam tam eva tikonteya sadatad bhava bhavataha. I think Dravida Prabhu is going to correct my pronunciation later. Yeah, it's one great advantage of staying with him. Not yet. So, we want to remember Krishna at the time of death, because whatever we remember at the time of death, we will obtain that without fail. So if we're remembering our partner, if the man is remembering the woman, he may take birth as a woman. If the woman is remembering the man, she may take birth as a man. But we don't want to take birth as a man or a woman. We want to be qualified to go back to the spiritual world. And if Krishna wants us to take birth here again, that's his mercy. But at least we should try to be qualified. Ato griha kshetra sutapta viter. After the man and woman come together and they get very attached to each other, such a hridaya grantam, a strong knot is there, then griha, then the home will come, some house or flat, and then kshetra, some land or some facility for artha, for financial development to support the family will be there. And one is also attached to that. Especially, I'm just now coming from India, people have their khet, their land, their field. It's their ancestral land that their family for generations have been growing crops and supporting the family. So one gets very attached to that kshetra. So that's also a very strong attachment. And then suta, the sons and the children come. One gets very attracted and attached to the children. And apta, the relatives, and vitai, by wealth. And in this way, janasya mohoya mahameti, we get caught up in this illusion of thinking that these things belong to me, aham mameti, I, me, mine. But actually everything belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ishavasya idam sarvam yatkincha jagacham jagat tena taktena bunjita magridha tasya svid dhanam. The Ishopanishad explains that everything in this world, moving, non-moving, is owned by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And one should only accept his proper quota, knowing to whom everything belongs. So in conclusion, I would just like to conclude Prabhupada's last words. He says the action point is we should engage, we should associate with those devotees, those persons who engage in devotional service 24 hours a day. This is the safest path for us, to always seek the good association of devotees engaged in devotional service 24 hours a day. And thus we chant this prayer every morning. Vancha kalp, no? Vancha. Vancha. Can everyone say that? Vancha. Vancha. Is that right, Durga Prabhu?
That's right.
Wow. That's great. Thank you. I learned something in the class today. Okay, let's try the whole shloka. Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions or comments? We have a few minutes. Yes, go ahead. Durga Prabhu.
At the end there, you were kind of emphasizing how we are supposed to associate, and don't bring to me those who do associate with those who are drinking in the honey of the Lord's lotus feet. But as you mentioned, I think you also mentioned that, and this is mentioned in the translation, or in the verse itself, ajasram means always, who will always drink the honey of the Lord's lotus feet. Because sometimes we drink and then we stop drinking.
Or sometimes we drink something else.
So this is those who are constantly drinking the nectar of Krishna's lotus feet, those who we should seek out and get associated.
Teshan satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted, satata yuktanam. Yuktanam means yoga, yukt means connected. Bhajatam priti purvakam, engaging in worshipping Krishna. Bhajan, priti with love. Priti purvakam, with full love. Dadami buddhi yogam tam. Krishna says, I give them buddhi yogam, real intelligence. Yena mam upayanti te. That intelligence by which they can come to me. So that's the qualification. Satata yuktanam, constantly engaged. So if we can seek out persons like this, constantly engaged in devotional service, we'll be very much greatly benefited. Thank you very much for your comment, Durga Prabhu. I'm grateful to you. Maybe we have
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I have a question.
Yes, please go ahead, Prabhu.
Maharaj, thank you very much. You're very kind. Dandavat pranams. Maharaj, my question is, if attachment to family life and worldly enjoyment form the path to hell, why do I find in the Varnashram Dharma institution the Grihastha ashram? So in other words, why devotees, what is the reason for devotees to get married?
Oh, thank you very much for your question, Prabhu.
You're welcome, Maharaj.
If I understand your question properly, you're saying that because the family life is a path to hell, what is the purpose of the Grihastha ashram?
Exactly, Maharaj. That is my question, if I may.
Okay, good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So there's two different concepts. One is called Grihastha and the other is called Griha Medi. The Griha Medi, the center of their life is their family and the materialistic activities that go on. Ato griha kshetra sutapta viter, their house and their land and their job and their children and their relatives and their wealth. This is their focus. Then on the other hand, we have the Grihastha, which is an ashram in which the most important thing is Krishna. Krishna is in the center of the family's activities. The the whole family is learning to worship Krishna together. They come together, they hear the scriptures together, they worship the deity together, they honor prasadam together, and they chant the holy names together. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this Grahastha ashram is Krishna's arrangement by which one can make spiritual advancement even in family life by keeping Krishna in the center. Does that answer your question, Prabhu?
Oh, Maharaj, as to be expected, very helpful again. Wonderful answer to my question. Thank you very much, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. And Dravida Prabhu would also like to...
A small little addendum to that. I was listening to a lecture once and Prabhupada was talking about, the dangers of materialistic household life, the Pungsastriyamatani. But then he said, we can't condemn sex life altogether, because after all of the great acharyas, Ramanujacharya, Yamanacharya, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Bhaktivinoda, they all grew up in households. In other words,
they all had mothers.
Yes, and they're products of course, devotional households. So that's an essential part of human civilization and devotion and devotional life also. So it makes a world of difference.
It's a great service if a grihastha can provide his family a Krishna conscious atmosphere to help them advance in their spiritual life. It's a great service. Thank you so much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.